ice fishing, you know, that I never believed that my involvement with that would become so important to me, you know, this ice fishing. It was a hobby, for crying out loud. I was like all you guys, you know, I fish for a living.
Wait a minute, Jake, take it serious though.
Well, I understand, but I take it pretty seriously. Money's on the line too, you know. Every now there ain't no money on the line, I can laugh and giggle in here and tell you some windies. But, you know, I have an extensive background charter fishing, and so I got started out in my little hometown of Brooklyn. They had a little tournament there, and the buddy I chartered with says, well, we ought to get in that tournament. You're the best pan fisherman I ever seen. Finally, the day before the tournament, I tell him, okay, we'll do it. So then we go out the next day, and man, get second place, win $5,000. Nothing wrong. That was pretty easy, you know. Maybe we should try that again. Maybe we'll get first next time. We all
likes that kind of fishing trip.
Yeah, right. You know, success, you know, breeds a good time in all of our fishing worlds. You know, nobody wants to go out there and drill a hole and sit there like grumpy old men and never catch shit. You know, I mean, it happens to us all a lot, though. You know, I just come from fishing the national championships. I was there a week. And I literally, the fishing was terrible, the snow was deep, it was 25 below zero, and everything sucked. If you didn't break everything you had, you weren't doing it. Everything was breaking. We had a terrible time. But fishing was extremely tough. But one of the lessons that I brought home from that was we have all these bells and whistles. You know, we have the graphs, we have cameras, we have all that. And all that stuff has a place. The guys that won fish. And that was one of the lessons that come from me, is they drilled the holes, search around, then you got to fish. You know, looking through a camera is pretty, you know, and taking a picture, all that's good and fine. But you know, in a tournament situation, it's like our situations when you go, you got to have something in the bucket when you get home. You know, you even go fishing. I don't see nothing in there. You know, feels like that mean thing I got at home. You know, well, what'd you do with them? You know, you're supposed to be good. You know. And in my world, I've won a couple national championships and a world championships. And my grandkids now are going, well, Grandpa, how come you're sucking? You're supposed to be really good at this, you know? So that's one of them things, you know, the granddaughter looks up at you with the big eyes and they expect a miracle, you know? Yeah. So I was just going to go over some of the little common sense ways that's helped me, you know, even in the tournament world, but especially for going out here and conquering on this, you know, Great Lakes. So there's several different kinds. The first thing you want to look at is the type of lake you're fishing on. You know, there's basically two types of lakes that I fish. We got the weed-orientated lakes, which is what we have here, shallow, and then we have lakes that are basin orientated, which are deep in the fish. A lot of your panfish will live in them lakes in the deeper water, 10 to 20, 30 foot down. And that's when your vexillars, your markhams, your graphs really come into their own. But out here, a lot of it's sight fishing and shallow water weed environments. One of the tactics that I've really found that helped me throughout in this shallow water environment, it took me a while to grasp this tactic, but after I got slapped up so hard in a few tournaments watching these guys do this, I had to go try it, and it was amazing how simple it was, and how effective, especially in what we're faced with right here, was the long pole fishing tactic. First time I seen these guys, and they all always come running down the lake with all these long poles, I'm thinking, looks like my charter boat sometime, man. Poles sticking out all over. What are they going to catch with them? They can't even get close to the hole with them things. How are they going to catch anything? Well, then, come time for weigh-in, gee, so they got big loads of them, and that was these guys running around these long poles. But in that real shallow environment, what was happening is if we had a fish house over it, you know, like our traps, or you fished up by the hole, the water was so shallow and clear, you're spooking a tremendous amount of them. Even flicking your hand, you know, looking down a hole when a fish comes to get your bait, they'll even see you blinking, they'll spook away. So fish are, in these environments, are very spooky because you're dealing with shallow water. Well, these guys would be more like a deer hunting type thing, you know. You ease up on a hole and they just, you know, in this shallow water, you only need 4, 5, 6 foot of line, whatever it takes to get down. And they'd actually have a series of holes. They'd get their holes drilled. Then they just, you know, ease on in and then fish, and then just nice and slow and easy, move on over and fish another spot. It was amazing the amount of fish they caught because they weren't spooking a tremendous amount of them in the shallow water. When you're battling the shallow water conditions like that, it's one of the number one things, you know. You're sitting there and a fish just about to, if you're sight fishing, they're just about to bite your bait, somebody comes walking up with creepers on, or, you know, you guys, it looks like somebody whacked them in the hind end with a stick, man, the way they take off. Now, you spooked them all, you know. But, you know, stalking these fish in the shallow waters, is very challenging. Like in some of the channel situations, we'd get guys, we'd almost be like a deer drive. We'd set the guys up fishing, and then the other guys go down and pound on the ice and kind of work your way back, and almost be like a fish drive. And you could catch them pretty effectively in these channels doing that. But these long poles were super effective. I never would have dreamed I'd ever tell you that. But in the shallow water tactics, these long poles, you know, the little spring bob problem. This one don't have one, but usually I got a little spring bobber. But you know, when your jigging tactic with the long pole too is when you drop in, is you're not jigging up and down like this either. You're just shaking the rod back and forth. You know, you ease it down to get to your depth, you know, especially if you're perch fishing or bluegills and stuff will be up in the water. They'll come up, the crappies will come up in the water column farther than a perch will typically. They see the bait, they'll come up to get it, but typically perch are within 2 foot of bottom, typically. Not that they won't, you know, come up higher. But your bluegills and crappies, it's nothing for them to be mid-range all the time. They come up, you know, you only fish halfway down, and you get there, especially over weeds. You can fish right over weeds with the long pole. So the number one tactic I've seen to up your catch in shallow water is, you know, you just try it sometime where you're not up on the hole. You'll be amazing how much your catch rate will go up from being back where you're not spooking them. And you most got to stalk these fish a lot more. You know, a lot of people get all worked up on the power augers, but I believe what's scaring them more is the bit in the ice. They hear that because they're not hearing what's going in the air, like that motor running. I don't believe they're hearing that because that's not bothering them. But I do believe, you know, because I'm an old pike spearer, you know, done a lot of spearing, and when somebody comes up with them good ice creepers on there, you watch how the fish react, guys. You know, you've all been fishing. You guys agree with that? My assessment on that? I mean, creepers to me has been one of the number one. Rubber tires don't seem to scare them near as severely, but it's that creeping. And I believe that was with the auger too, the crunching. It transmits the noise. You know, but I don't believe the motor noise, they hear that. A lot of people will use that, but I do believe it's the bit. But still, no matter what, they're getting spooked in the shallow water, high predator-based environment. Now you get in some other environments where you don't have the large amount of muskies, big northerns, you know, pursuing, and them fish all of a sudden they're not scared, they'll act differently than out here. They know submarine triton submarines live out here, you know. They've all seen their buddies all get gobbled up, you know, numerous times out here. You know, because Jaws lives out in these waters, you know, not, you know, but you get in a lot of your smaller lakes like where I live, you don't have big pike in them or no muskies, so the fish will act differently. They won't live in the weeds, they'll live out in the open because they don't have that fear of getting eaten. A lake like that's Hamlin Lake in Ludington where I salmon fish. You know, I chased the panfish there. After they got to a certain size, the big bluegills didn't live in the weeds no more. Once they hit 8 inches, they moved outside the weeds and lived in like 11, 13 foot where we got all the big ones outside the weeds. All the smaller fish lived in the weeds. But the big ones, once they reached a certain size, and then it dawned on me they never got any big pike. Like a 30-incher was a top end fish. So once you reached about 8 inches, he's not getting 8 inches. So them fish took on a different characteristics then that they would inhabit different parts of the lake. Out here though, you always have that large predator to keep, you know, it's just like having the white bone with the trolling pin, you know. They brought back to reality when they show up. But that's one of the tactics for out here. Another thing I have found is drill a lot of holes and move them a lot, you know. And out here, you know, drill a lot of holes and then go back through them too, so you're not drilling them right at the same. Over deep water, you can drill and fish immediately. Drill and fish, drill and fish. In shallow water, you need to drill your holes and then kind of go back through them. That's one of the tactics. Yes, sir.
What do you determine shallow? 6 or less?
Yeah, 7 or 8. Actually, kind of go on how the fish react, you know. And everybody, you know, every lake's different. They take on different characteristics. You know, we all have our home favorite lakes. You know, I cut my teeth on out on Wampers and Devils and Round Lake in Lenawee County. I was raised around there, and extensive, you know, clear water fishing. We did a lot of sight fishing to see how the fish act. But you know, shallower than 8 foot is what I would call shallow fishing. You know, and I've done a lot of 3-4 foot stuff too. You know, wherever the fish are. You know, first of all, here I'm not saying what's good on depth or anything. You know, my bottom line is I'm a charter boat captain, and they pay me for a cooler full. I don't care if it's a 3 foot of water or 3,000. Bottom line is a cooler full for the guests. So we go wherever I believe, you know, that we can have the best results. And if you're going to go do that out here, you don't care if it's 2 foot or 15 feet. You don't really care. You know, where are they at? You know, where we're going to have the most success at. But different depths of water brings its own challenges, you know, on how to, you know, attack the fishing. In today's world, we got all these little cameras. They got these little gizzies here, you know, holy crap, in clear water, that cuts out a lot of, you know, bull crap. All of a sudden you can just see what's down there. Where we had guys going, oh, they're down here, they just ain't biting. I got some fish on the graph, pull the camera up, pull it down there. 3 or 4 little ones. Every big fish that come by flew right in and ate it, because he's trying to say, oh, they're really fussy here, you know, having a hard time catching them. So we watched with a camera for a while. Little fish would be there all the time, because they're too small to even eat your bait, but when a big one comes, boom, come right in and gobble it. So they weren't hard to catch, it's just the big ones didn't show up very often. And when a big one showed up, he just come right in and ate it, you know, but you didn't know that by looking at your graph, because you got marks on there. And with today's flashers, John's got a beautiful setup. I was one of the first ones to ever put flashers on a bucket competition. You know, we took the world by storm for a while there. We won a couple nationals when I was team of the year. When we searched there, people thought, what in the heck, them guys, all they do is cut holes. But we were in basin lakes where you could cut a lot of holes and search for fish then. And with these graphs, I can't tell if the fish is, say, 6 inches or 8 inches, but I can tell you what, I can tell a little fish from a big fish on there quite readily after a little usage. You know, I get out on a fishing trip, I'm like you get your graph set, and the secret I found is once you get it kind of set, is I don't like to turn that intensity dial. I don't want to touch that the rest of the day, because that way it's giving me apples to apples what my mark looks like, you know, a certain size fish. You get out there and you catch a couple, and boy, you see a mark come in and you catch that one, now you got it to comparison. Oh God, that mark, that was a pretty good sized fish. So if you're looking for that bigger, thicker red mark, typically, not the little flutter, if it stays green, if it don't mark any heavier than your jig, you know, it's about the size of your jig, you know, so. And we're all looking for bigger fish than that, but that's one of the aids that I've found with that electronics, is by doing that, is qualifying the size of the fish a lot. We won one tournament that we fished in the deep water, and it was 30 foot of water, but we wouldn't even fish for the fish unless he was shallower than 15 feet. If he was 15 feet or above, it was crappies out there. The biggest ones were up the shallowest over the deep water, so we just drill a couple hundred holes and then just start looking. And only take them if they were above so much, and it was invariably a big one. Very high percentage. You fish down where all the fish were, you caught lots of little ones. But there's a lot less, as the fish age in a population, there gets to be every year less and less and less of that year class until they're all gone. So you're fishing for, you know, if you're tournament fishing, you're fishing for the larger fish, you're fishing for the least amount of them in the lake, basically, is what you're doing, you know. So it's a lot harder to catch a bunch of them big ones, because there's far fewer of them in a body of water than there is little ones. That's just naturally the way it is. So anything you can do, like using your electronics or whatever to, you know, to get them bigger ones, really, you know, is a real aid. The cameras, you know, on the tournament trail, what a tremendous, you know, asset they become. But last year, the guys that won it used them to a high level, but this year it come right back to fishing. So one word of wisdom I got is all the bells and whistles are great, and I ain't gonna throw rocks at them, but boys, it still takes the hook in the water and fishing to get them, you know, running around just looking through camera. You know, that's a great thing and it's a fun time, but that's still not used correctly. You know, even the you know, I use an old piece of junk fishing pole, and you can have a $500 one, but that guy with the old junk one, sometimes you come out there, the old man comes getting along here, boy, I'll still you out done here. Pretty much gets her done, you know. So it ain't about the type of equipment, you know. I'm not a guy saying, you know, that you got to use a certain brand or any of that kind of stuff. My biggest secret to success is going and find the fish. If there's anything I can tell you is you got to be where they're at. It's like hunting big bucks, you know. I hunt deer too, and if there's not a big one around, you're never going to shoot. That's just how it is. Same thing with fishing. You got to use all the tools you got to find them. And then do a fine tuning on the presentation. You know, we'll get into tackle and everything here. But anyway, that's a little bit of my spiel. Let's get into little questions and answers here. That's what I usually do.
What do you recommend for ice shanty fishing?
For ice shanty fishing, there's Chappelles, there's clams, there's.
I mean, I understand that.
Okay.
Because you're just going to stay mobile to move around.
Right. You get in there. You set in there. I like, especially if you can see, I like doing sight fishing. You know, but I still like to be pretty mobile. Though sometimes you get in brutal weather, especially at the fish houses when you get on a runway or something in the weeds. Usually I'm looking for that perfect hole, whether it be on the edge of the weeds, or whether it be a sand patch in the weeds where the fish congregate. There's going to be situations when you're weed fishing, you kind of got to play it by ear. When you get around and see, that's one thing the camera has really helped me with, is because I don't use it very much. While you're fishing around, all of a sudden you get one of them holes, man, how come over there 4 foot I can't catch crap, and in this hole here, we've all seen that now ice fishing. I mean, you know, God, he's got another one, you know, and every time you look over there. So when you get in that situation, that is what I've really found this camera shines for, is you go over there and you can see why, and you get it down there and you go, oh, I see why now. There's an opening in the weeds here, and them fish are all coming in this opening. Or he's on the edge of the weeds, you know, and the fish are coming down the edge is why they're catching them here. Or there's a stick or something laying right here, and kind of fun. Whatever the reason may be, but we've all seen spots where just a few feet over, you're not catching crap, and the guy right there is sit right there and catch a bucket of them, you know. And usually, this just happened to me yesterday. My buddy starts catching them. Okay, grab up the auger, I drilled holes all the way around him. All right, so then I started hole hopping, and because of course I'd ask Roy, which way they coming from? Oh no, I ain't telling you. I know what you're up to. I'm gonna cut them off, you know. So it took me about 3 holes. All of a sudden, he was on the edge of the weeds. Well, then I get in the thick weeds. Oh, they're not in here. As soon as I got over the edge here, they come. And then pretty soon I hear him moving. Well, what happened? Well, not catching them now. Oh, they're getting to me first. That's what's happening. Now I'm catching them fine. When I'm sight fishing, I really use the tactic to see which way they're coming from. You know, if you're sitting there fishing, one comes to you, you know, when you catch them, I'm always like backtracking them, you know, immediately, you know, you catch 3 or 4, we're going to go that way and drill more holes that way. You know, that's a direction to go. You know, the fish are coming from somewhere. And a lot of times you'll find a pocket of fish by doing that around where, because they'll, fish a lot of times live around these weeds like deer live in swamps around where I deer hunt at. They're not just living out in the field and everything. They'll live in the swamp, and when it comes time to feed, they'll get up and they'll go out. Fish are the same way. With a camera, you really see it. When they get in them thick weeds, they're at a not very active state. They're in there just hanging out, not moving, and just hanging out in the weeds. Well, all of a sudden, and they're hard to catch. In my experience, a lot of times a fish that's not really moving is sometimes you catch them, a lot of times they turn it down, don't want it. But that same fish swims out of that weeds, goes out in that open, almost catch him every time. Because now he's went out there for a reason, to eat. As soon as he goes out in that open, he's feeling threatened or whatever, and then they feed much more readily also. So fish that are on the move are much easier to catch. So and if you can get one of them paths where you got fish coming like 2 directions, like on the edge of the weeds, and there'll be little points. It's always irregular around weed bed fishing. You know, you get around. I mean, I drill tons of holes because I'm always looking to see why. You know, I'm always one of them. Why is that happening? Why are they catching them over here and not over there? You know, and sometimes it's not readily apparent why either. The lake we were just fishing at Mille Lacs, we had bluegills and crappies in one bay, and half-mile up the lake there's another beautiful bay with weeds and not a bluegill or crappie in it. Tons of us went up there with cameras and looked. They weren't there. You know, I mean, you can't catch what's not there. You know, I mean, in the camera, and really, this is a real clear water situation, so you can see perfect. You know, you can see probably 25 or 30 feet in one direction with the camera. So one spin of the thing, you're seeing it. If you drilled in the middle of this room, you can see an area almost as big as this store. And then you can only have to, you know, then you can drill a hole over quite a ways through camera again and look for fish that way.
What would you do in dingy water then?
Yeah, that's much more difficult. The graphs, well, you know, Lake Erie is just like what you got to tangle with here. I guide on Lake Erie. Man, you get one of them nor'easters comes in, tears the lake, the crap and gone. Now it's dirtier and crap, weeds floating all over, and who knows what else, you know what I mean? You know, it's Great Lake fishing. Sometimes the lake dictates to what you get, you know. I mean, as I'm chartering, sometimes, you know, we got a 40-mile-an-hour nor'easter, boys, we just ain't going fishing. You know, that's just tough. Same thing you got here. You got a big nor'easter ripping the lake up. We're not going off our American side very much, you know. It's one of them things. The Great Lakes, you know, they're the finest places there are for catching numbers of big fish in most cases. But there are times, as good as they are, when they suck bad too. Well, because of conditions, just because of what the lake does to you. You get that big ripping wind, like I told you, and the water's just brown mud. I don't care who you are. it doesn't matter. You know, when I'm down there at Lake Erie, what I end up having to do is I run to the edge of the dirty water no matter how far it is. Sometimes it's 25 miles for me to get out past the stain line. Not that I'm always fishing clear water there for the walleyes and the perch, but we're fishing in the dingy sides, actually where the best fishing is. But it's the stain line. You know, out there they treat that stain line like a break. Same thing you'll have here. Oh, and it'll move. It's going to be a fluid thing. You know, you might start fishing on this stained dingy line. It could be 2-3 miles by the time you're done fishing. Move. A lot of times that happens to us down there. We start, you know, these fish. It's an evolution. They're changing all the time. They're on the move. These fish are very migratory out here. Your bluegills and crappies will be more home bodies. Smallmouths, home bodies. But you get in your perch, your walleyes, your muskies. They're a fluid. They move all over. You know, the tagging studies on the walleyes that they've had. I've had them where they tagged them at Manitoulin Island that we caught in Lake Erie. So them fish had to get from northern Lake Huron. That fish had to travel all the way down, you know, the rivers through St. Clair and get to Lake Erie. You know, and vice versa. They said they've had fish that they've tagged in Lake Erie that they've recovered the tags up there in northern Huron. So that's how many 100 miles is that, you know, for a walleye? So, you know, that shows you how migratory that they can be compared to different species will have different characteristics like that. But our panfish out here, our bluegills and our crappies, and our pumpkin seeds, especially pumpkin seeds, will be very small spot orientated. You know, they won't. You're not going to catch them be the other side of the lake. They're going to hang out there and still be difficult to catch. Imagine you get up in the channels here in the summertime. It'll help protect that, you know, from the big winds and stuff a lot. But that's just some of the things you have to tend with Great Lake fishing. It's large and it's the catches are just unbelievable compared to, you know, how many more pounds of fish you can produce compared to an inland lake. Inland lake, you go ice fishing, you can catch them 3-4 times there. And, you know, the first trip you go there, man, you get a bucket full. The next trip it's a half a bucket. The third trip it's about a quarter, and then you're lucky to catch it. Yeah. Is that, you know, pretty much your scenarios on a lot of small waters? You know, you get a good spot and that kind of. But out here, you know, as long as the conditions are good, it can be a bucket every day for the year. Where a small body of water won't produce that amount of fish, or the size.
I imagine you probably have a handheld GPS too when you go out and find these spots.
Yes, yeah, I tell you what, that is another aid that you know, and they got this. The heck of it is now, all this stuff can be done on a phone anymore. You know, I mean, I'm having difficulty grasping all this stuff, but my little TomTom took a crap, so the next thing you know, I'm on my phone punching in, and they brought me here. You know, and they got apps. They got camera apps for these phones now. You can buy one of them Navionics chips now to. Heck, I got to the Nationals with my partner the first time, and of course I had, just like you said, I had a nice little H2O with a chip in it and everything, and my partner comes over and starts telling me something about it. He'd never been there before. I went, how the heck you know all that? Well, look at here. I look at his phone, and for $7 he's got better than I got 300 in. You know? I'm going, what's up with that? And they update it and all that stuff. So today's electronic age, you know, it's coming faster than we can apply it. Yes, darn near what's happening. You know what I mean? With I have a difficulty grasping all that stuff. I get around all these electronic. My granddaughter, she could probably show me exactly how to do that. But me, you know, in the real world here, you know, I have a little more difficulty. But it's amazing, the electronic stuff, and a GPS is just bare bones minimum. I think we got one of them, and there's a bunch of different brands. They're all pretty serviceable, but I do believe that I ain't going without one. If you find that good spot, no matter if it's foggy, cloudy, rainy, you find that nice little piece of sweet cover. A lot of that stuff don't move either out here. You get a rut, like these guys are talking about. One of the good paths out here is where the ice flows will go up and make a depression or something, you know, like if you get washed out, and then that'll be a fish travel path for years to come, because that won't change a lot. You know, little key spots. You know, I fish large structures, but the real key is always there's a little something different. On big, large, even if I say a big flat of weeds or point or something, there's always seems to be a key area on a large piece of structure. Like we got a big long weed bed stretch here. Whether it be the edges, whether it be holes in the weeds, or maybe in the weed bed is a really good lush patch of cabbage weeds here, and then it'll be sparse throwaways, and then maybe some coon tails and mixture, but whatever and it varies from year to year also. Like at home, they've been poisoning a lot of our lakes and really changing our bodies of water because of that too, you know. But maybe a big wind comes here just before. That's what happened in Mille Lacs last year. A big wind come just before ice up and just destroyed the weeds and laid down where there used to be 3 times as many weeds. Now it just tore it all up. But the offshoot it concentrated the fish in less of an area too. This year where there's a lot more weeds, they will scatter more. So, you know, it's whatever, you know, it's a great big lake too, 132,000 acres. So it's similar to what we were tangling with here, you know, a large body of water. And it's a walleye perch-based lake with catching a few bluegills and crappies, a lot like this. You know, this is pretty much more of a perch-based lake, you know, but you do catch a lot of the pumpkin seeds and the bluegills and stuff like that. Yes, sir.
How much are what's the brand of that camera?
That is an Aquaview, and that's a bigger one. They got these little ones. They're like $250, and these little Aquaviews, that's the bigger one. But they got little ones. They're only this big. They're like $250 or $300.
Now, what's the range that you can see from?
It depends on how clear the water is.
Yeah.
The clearer the water, the further you can see. Usually, a lot of times, I look how far down. That's, you know, that's a question that's going to be asked. How far when you're drilling, do you drill your holes apart? And this is the rule of thumb I go by. I gotta go to strange body of water I've never been to before. First thing I do is I cut a hole, I pull it out, and I try and decide how far down can I see my bait. Can I see my bait go down 5 feet? Can I see my bait go down 10 feet? Can I see my bait go down 20? If my bait goes down 5 feet and it goes out of view, now I know I can pattern drill every 10 feet, and theoretically every fish will see my bait. If you think you can see that lure 10 feet, now you can jump your hole, pattern drilling out 20 foot apart. If you think the fish can see 20 feet, now you don't drill a hole but every 40. You know, so you can cover, and water clarity has a lot of bearing on how far apart I drill my holes, especially when I get around fish holding, because usually it's like all of us, we'll drill, and start running into something. And then, you know, then you start doing the circle. You know, okay, we got a few fish here, we caught a couple. Now we drill around in this neighborhood, you know, and see what's going on. Maybe it's a little better this way or that way. That's why drilling a lot of holes, you know, is very important to me. But another thing that's come on is everybody's using these darn drills anymore, you know. I mean, that's the new craze, you know, with a small auger chuck. And man, what a deal that is! Quick and quiet. By the time somebody can get out and start a gas auger, you've done got 3, you know. I mean, you've done drilled your hole and caught 3 by the time they can get that started, you know. And then the size of it and everything. And a lot of people got these, you know, I'm a construction worker too, so them drill, you know, what a nice, you know, you can use that all summer while you're working. Keep the batteries fresh all winter while you're cutting that.
Too bad mine got shrink wrapped into the boat.
I'd have to go cut that out or buy excuse to buy another one, tell them right the lucky news.
Yeah.
But, yeah, there's just all kinds of things, you know, as we look around the typical store and all the gadgets and all the stuff. But it still boils down to fish in the bucket, and that means hooks in the water with bait on your hook with a good presentation. I'm not all caught up in colors. That really got brought home to me because I fished in world competition now. We won the world championships in 2010. The greatest moment of my life was when we got the gold medal for the United States. And that was a pretty cherished moment. There were some tears in these eyes. And I was just back to that place not long ago, and there was still a tear there. But that was a pretty special moment. But that wasn't. I lost my train of thought. I'm gonna be thinking about that again there.
Colors.
What's that?
Colors.
Colors. There we go. Get back to that. You're gonna be thinking about that gold medal. It's gold. But no, the Europeans think we're the dumbest things since rock. Because the only colors they got on their ice fishing stuff is it's either lead color, gold color, or copper color. Whatever the product they make it out of, a color comes out, that's it. They see us worrying about, you know, chartreuse and pink and the fancy colors. They're laughing. They think we're the dumbest things. Because all it is a delivery system for bloodworms for them over there. Because they're using them little red bloodworms, which are blood red color. Well, I wish we could get them here. Because the fish sure love them over there.
We got a scent for them.
Yeah.
And you got some of them. Well, the last guy I knew tried sending them in. was when they got here, they had all the skull and crossbones on the packaging, and they said something about irradiation on them and stuff. So they were all a dead mass when I seen them. They didn't let them get through the border alive. They killed them.
What about these, out here where you got a shitload of people out at once? What about bouncing? You know what I mean? Because I've found it's a mixed bag. Stay in one place, let them come back to you.
It's 6 to 1, half a dozen other. Myself, I like to drill until I think I got a sweet spot.
8 feet from you.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, that's very
And I've had
common.
them set up right behind me.
Some
It's
people
like,
have no, they don't, a lot of them don't even know what they're doing.
Oh, I know.
You know,
I
you
see
get
it
out
a
there
lot.
and we're
They see
getting,
you catching fish.
well,
Now I don't make that mistake of
even
putting them
in
outside the
tournament,
shanty.
secrecy is a pretty important element, but when you're fishing in tournaments like I am, there ain't nothing, no secrets out there, boys. And then especially after you win like I have, there's a big skull, there's a big old crosshair on me everywhere I go. When I come on the lake in any of these tournaments, they know where I've been and what I'm doing. Because there isn't really no, they're gonna be over there checking. If they see me over very long in a neighborhood,
Vernacular.
no, they'll do that, but they'll be over there checking. They might show a little class and wait till I'm a little ways away
We
from them.
especially go where you don't go.
Yeah. But we're all looking at it. It's today's with electronics and stuff, it's so amazing the stuff you find out. But you can't teach class. There's a lot of people. You're getting a lot of people who are just coming out and going fishing. And myself is I'm not going to use it as an excuse ever. Because we got to fish through heavy traffic a lot. And a lot of times I've taken and used heavy traffic as an advantage with fishing. Always go to the edge of the path. Same thing I do salmon fishing. I don't know if you've ever been to Ludington salmon fishing there. I've been guiding there for 30 years, and the point is a famous salmon spot. All week long, there's just a smattering of boats. Come Saturday, Sunday morning, baby, when it's on there, you come out of the channel, you look, and there's 400 of them up there, all strung down the drop-off. Well, I never miss a beat. The way to handle that is you go right to the outside edge of the boats, no matter how deep it is. And when all them boats start rocking down there, they start catching fish, and stick fish are struggling, and fish don't go shallower for safety. They go deeper. They always go, or there's two things. They'll either go deeper or they go into heavy weeds and cover, depending on the brand or the species of the fish. So I always go to the outside edge, and I've used this to win several tournaments, is they'll start fishing an area I know has got a high fish population, especially like on the inside corner where the fish are stacked up. A lot of times later in the tournament, people are all fished up where the fish all were. As soon as I get there, we drill on the outside edge of the pack of the people in virgin ice where there's nothing but drilled, and fish the outside edges, because a lot of the fish, if they're catching them, they catch them, and if they're too small, they throw them back. Now you have that happen, you got say 50, 60 guys doing that. They're catching a bunch of fish in a high population. All them cripples they're throwing back, a lot of them are messed up, a lot of them, they just got their jaw jerked and they flung back. Now when they do get back down in the water, man, it was like me getting slapped up when I was younger. I'm gonna go get to safety, I'm going to deep water. And when there's numbers of them, they'll scream off and get out on that outside edges, and you go to that outside edge and be very productive. Where there was no fish the day before, in the heavy traffic, all of a sudden them fish will be to that outside edges, of the pack of people. So a lot of times, use them people as an advantage for you, to fish the edges. But if you get out of the cover where they're holding, you can be out too far too sometimes. It all depends on what you have below. But in them environments, it was open, no weeds, they weren't associated with that, so they just roll out for depth as safety. So that's the two type of safety nets, Then you get out like here, the fish feel threatened, big muskie comes through, he's going into the thickest patch of weeds that he can, hide
Shut
up
us
in.
off today.
Is that what you had happen?
Had one come through, and an
Yeah.
hour later, we still didn't have nothing. I said, well, it's up to you, girl, you wanna go? Yep, this
And
much.
some of them spook them fish. Now, if you have fish that are active, they'll regenerate back to your area a lot of times. But if them fish are just hanging there and they're in a negative mood and they get spooked off, wherever they end up landing is where they'll just kind of hang out until the next big submarine comes and pushes them, and then they run over here. That's why I kind of moving, but right over some of these shallow water fish, like I said, you drill a hole, you spook them away. Just like you're like a pike or a muskie. So you kind of got to, in these environments like this, drill your bunch of holes and then ease back through them. In shallow water fishing, because there's a definite art form for that, and being successful. But I always like to be on the move. I'd rather err moving too much than ever be camping too much. But once you find that super spot, though, I tell you what, you get one of these You know, you get you a good edge of the weeds where two things intersect, maybe you drop off. There's always gonna be that key spot, you know. We did real good at one tournament. The key spot was there was a drop off and then a little dog leg on the drop off, and it was only like 15 foot, you know. And right in that little corner is where we caught all our crappies to do so well, was in that one little corner. They must come down the drop off, the little tendril of weeds, you know, led into the deep water. And they would roll, that must have been their path they rolled up right there, you know, or where they would stage a lot of times. There'd be an area, especially with crappies, there'd be bluegills all around, and you get crappies, and the crappies always got the sweet spot. They'll be, if you're catching bluegills, and then all of a sudden you get an area where the crappies are too, that's usually the sweet spot in the area for me, because you'll have both. Because the bluegills will roll around a lot more of the area than the crappies, typically, you know, is what I've seen. Any other questions here?
What's your best weather days, or like today was beautiful out there, but.
Well, oh boy, I go every chance I get.
Well, yeah. Have you noticed?
I'm an old, you know, of course I like nice warming trends where I don't get cold, you know. I like it when the fish are coming in nonstop, you know. I love that kind of stuff, but that's not usually what I'm faced with. Chartering, I have to fish no matter the conditions, so I don't really. You know, I'm one of them. I leave at 5 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon, you know, no matter what the weather is. You just gotta go. I really believe in the solar tables too, the tidal charts, of which all them are, is glorified tidal charts applied to our area where we fish. I think tides affect the fish inland just as well as they do in the ocean. We just don't see the water fluctuation like you do with the ocean. But that same influence still controls our fishing game inland too. And I really notice that. I follow them as I'm guiding every day. I see where, you know, because I got to fish twice a day every day, so I'm out there. So I get to see when the bite takes place, and when it's usually like an hour later each day, following right on them solar tables. But there's local weather patterns that really influence, you know, what happens. Like when my salmon fishing, a thunderstorm comes across. Just before all that hits, and as it's going on, man, you can't get lines in the water fast enough. After it rolls by, you might as well. Actually, I want to do it loud because we're just going to be sport trolling for a while. And that happens a lot. After the front rolls through and it dies down, fishing usually suck. But just before it gets there, and as it's going on, man, they don't get no better. Then it can just nosedive right off. And I think all fish are affected, you know, no matter what species.
So you haven't drew a correlation between warm ice weather and cold ice weather for catching fish?
Well, I'd rather have it warmer.
Well, yeah.
But warming trends, warm front conditions usually bring better fishing compared to cold front conditions, you know. I was always, the first book I ever read on fishing was old Buck Perry's, spoon plugging. And I tell everybody that should be, if you're gonna be a competitive fisherman, that everybody should have to read that book, everybody. And then follow a lot of their teachings, because you can carry it to a higher level, but he covers it, in a simple, applicable fashion. Start fishing from the minute you leave the dock until you get back, and the fish are either they're deep or they're shallow or they're somewhere in between. It's real simple. Now, he's got some pretty simplistic outlooks, but it's I've applied it to my chartering and a lot of the ways I attack tournament fishing also. There's a lot of what I gleaned from reading that book and everything. I started off with the old green box when I was a kid. I still got 3 of them, and I don't know, just things have advanced so far now. Everything's on a cell phone, how are we going to get over there? Sportsman's Direct, I got my cell phone, I'm going to find my way there. Things have changed a lot, but things still stayed the same, because it got brought home to me at the Nationals that you still got to fish. You just can't win running around looking at a camera. You can't win just running around looking at a graph. You still have to put a hook in the water and go chase them down wherever they may be.
You prefer live bait or anything like that, or over plastic?
I use both, and I believe in both, and you can't take either one away from me. I think in a super tough bait is far superior, especially around bluegills, sunfish, crappies, man. It's hard to beat a piece of plastic yanked around it. It's just hard. Although I've seen at the Nationals, the bite was so tough that the winning combination was a little bitty gold jig with 1 spike on it. And that was a 2.5. That's like little, That was the winning combination to win the national championship this year. Because the fishing was so cold in cold front conditions, that was even them bigger crappies. That was the winning tactic. So if conditions get tough, downsize traditionally. Myself, I like to use a big flash bait. When I'm searching, I either use a big jump bait or I use a big piece of plastic. That's the first thing I do. So I'm using a graph, I usually use a big bait, a big piece of plastic, not necessarily to catch the first fish. It's to get action and see. If I have fish come into that, like on my graph, and I don't catch them, I just grab out my other pole with a lot smaller bait and go right to that immediately. But if nothing's come to look at it, why switch baits? Or why even go to that little thing? I only go to the little baits when I get fish that are coming in, I see them coming on my graph, and then they're not biting, because they'll come zooming in and turn it down. Or if you sight fish and they come in and turn it down. We had that happen yesterday. My partner, the guy I was fishing with, he threw down a great big old little Adam tail, a big one on a number 5 jig. Had them coming in, and then we switched right over to little baits and started catching them readily. But they will come and look at that big. That's a great bait for searching. Quick, because it's heavy. You can throw it down through the slush. You can go. Then as soon as you get fish coming around now, then you slow down and start changing your presentation. Because if you haven't had a fish look at your bait, what's the sense of even changing anything? You got to go to in your mind whether you see them or you see them on the graph that fish were approaching your bait. And they turn it down, and then you go right to something else. Always go to smaller, and you go to live bait if you can, whether it be waxworms or spikes or mousies. I'm not super fussy on that at all. But size of bait, plastic for a search bait, and going right to bait if they get big. Yes, sir.
What about line color or line weight?
I'm a 2-3 pound guy myself. I like the line heavy enough because of my chartering background. I don't like losing a lot of tackle, so I'd rather be overgunned as undergunned. And I tell you, they'll bite all them colored lines. I don't see a whole lot. My long pole, I do put a colored leader on it, you know what I'm saying? But, when I'm salmon fishing, we're running 60 and 80 pound leader, and I mean, it's like, I don't seem to scare them now. An 80 pound thing, it's like, weed whip line you're using for line here, and it don't seem to phase them. But too light a line, I used to do the sewing thread, we went to sew light and all that ever happened is it was good for the jig sellers, because I broke off a ton more of them, and I don't think it helped my catch rate enough to be worth all that trouble, You get out here, I think 2 or 3 pound would be plenty, 4 pound, And the reason I don't like 4 pounds as much is the heavier line in cold weather, it starts getting more memory and it starts, doing this coil. I like a line that hangs nice, straight to the bait, and if too light, you're breaking off too much, And I had that happen yesterday. It was another one of my fishing stories. I had about a 12-incher around the hole, broke off, and then swam by a little later, and he's got the hook hanging on his lip here 3 minutes later. We never did get that one. We did get some other ones. But, what other questions we got here? I would like to answer what you got. Yes, sir.
How do you find those pockets and bends without electronics?
Drill a lot of holes and look at them. I tell you what, if you can sight fish, that really helps. You can get around weeds. You can do a lot, especially if you can see down. A lot of the lakes at home, I never even take. I've used this camera a little bit, but I still. Thing with the camera is you can't tell the size of the fish. I don't care who you are, you can see it's a fish off in the distance, but I still can't tell if it's a 6-inch bluegill or a 12-inch bluegill. I just see a bluegill. Crappies, because there isn't you don't know how far from the camera he is, how clear the water is, or one comes right up to the cameraman, he looks like he's a giant, heck, he might only be that long, But with cameras, it's very difficult, so that's why I always like to catch the fish. Now, when you got him here, well, that's an 8-incher, that's a 10-incher, or whatever. Okay, you can tell size that way, too. So still boils down to catching. Still boils down to that. In searching, just drill a lot of holes, And as you get more familiar with an area, too, it's like anything, for success is the more you learn and the more you see what's going on there. Them weeds change from year to year so severely, where it was a thick patch last year, we died down to hardly nothing. And so it's all what's going on right then, that's another thing about fishing. It's not what happened last year or last month, I've been in bodies of water, like at first ice, you couldn't hardly catch them. You come back in February, man, and it's the greatest thing. It looks like a fishing aquarium all of a sudden. We had that at the World Championships in 2010. We won in 2008 the national championships there, so we have the world team come to that lake, and it was an extremely tough lake, and John will attest how tough this lake was early in the season. The Europeans show up there on a couple of big shuttle buses, and I'm snickering and laughing, going, we'll see what they do when they get to this lake, you know. So out they all run, about 100 of them out fishing, and we all go off to a little area fishing. A couple hours later, we go walking through them. They all got 15 or 20 crappies apiece laying on the ice. They're having a high old time. They're kissing them, and photo sessions and rolling at them. I called an immediate team meeting, boys. Come here. We're gonna have a talk. We're gonna get our asses kicked. I can see it coming here. We didn't think they could catch our fish. And what that lake, the point was, is that lake earlier in the year, you could hardly catch a fish. And later in the year, for whatever reason, they're running everywhere, easy to catch. You know, just, I think the lake warmed up in the reaches after it's been froze for a while, which has a difficult thing here because, you know, we got Lake Huron feeding this. So it really helped keep the temperature down all times. It flushes so rapidly. You know, your water flow here compared to a lot of the other lakes that'll get more stable in the wintertime and stratify in the lower reaches. The ground will warm that water up, you know, shallower and shallower. And then just before ice out, they were going crazy. So just, you know, time of year on certain lakes, it's amazing. It's amazing the difference of how the fish will react, you know.
You got any other favorite baits that you use, or it just depends on where you're at?
Well, I'll tell you what, in clear water, the toughest bites I've ever seen, orange is hard to beat. Orange and chartreuse, it must be they can see it the farthest. I ain't super fussy on color. I got one I call red, white, and blue, and it glows. I like my baits to glow. The reason is I don't know if fish bite glow any better than they do a bait that don't glow. But I do know one thing, they can see it twice as far away. So a bait that they can see twice as far away, I think they'll come twice as far to bite. And the reason I came to that conclusion is we were fishing a lake called Redstone. Huge crappie-based population in this lake. And we were fishing bait. And everywhere you went in this lake, there was like an 8-foot thick band of crappies. It was the most unbelievable thing you ever seen in your life. Everywhere on the lake, there were crappies. It's unbelievable. But, so you get spoiled because now it isn't where you're fishing, you're just trying to catch the biggest one. But we get these glow baits, and so I did an experiment. I went out with my graph, and I pulled out a bait that didn't glow, just a white tail with a bait. And I run it down, and I seen toward the fish. As soon as they seen your bait, they would come to get it. So I got within 5 feet of the wall of fish, and then fish would react and come to get it. When I took the same hole, everything, I put a glow bait on, the fish would come 10 feet. They would go from 5 to 10 feet. You know, it would double the range that fish would react to come and get your bait. Now, like I said, I don't know if they'll bite glow bait any better, but anything that they can see further away, you know, that gives you double the drawing distance to catch a fish, especially in low light conditions. And I don't like really super bright glow baits because it's like this light, too bright. A lot of times I don't think they'll. You want it slightly luminescent, just barely glowing, where you can look at it, it's just barely, that to me is the perfect glow. I come to that conclusion from salmon fishing. When we used to fish big J plugs, you put a glow stick in it, you couldn't catch diddly on it till the next day, till the glow would die down so it barely glowed, and then they'd bite it like crazy. That's just been my personal opinion for many years of seeing what's going on, and I can be changed, you know what I mean? Yeah, I just got to see it in action. You know, be just like you guys, you know what I'm saying? I'm looking for common sense answers and solutions here. You know, I ain't promising pie in the sky. That's not going to get the job. You know, here, just like going out here. All that sounds good in the magazine till we walk out on Lake St. Clair. You know? Then what are we going to do here? You know, you've seen all the same stuff.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. Everybody, we're out today, and everybody's catching fish every place. Not big ones, some big ones, some dings, but.
Everybody's catching fish. Nice, beautiful sunny day, midday. Yeah. Typically for perch fishing, that's my absolute favorite, is 10 to 2, middle of the day. Sunny and bright. You know, you wouldn't think so, but it's either early and late or midday.
So you're just trying to sort through.
Yep, I would go whenever you get the chance, you know, is my attitude on that. I don't know, I've seen it, you know, what you wouldn't think they would be biting, and they are. You know, the solar tables, you know, the lunar charts can influence them. If I had my druthers, I would just as soon follow that each day, you know, fish an hour each day and kind of follow that. But then sometimes it'll go over to an evening, and then all of a sudden it'll shut off and go right to a morning bite. I've seen that on my walleye and salmon fishing. You know, it'll do that, you know, get close to the evening, and then the next day, all of a sudden, it'll be a mooring bite, you know, and take off after that. Yes, sir.
What about barometric pressure? I mean, since you fish all the time, I read that more guys catch them on falling than when it was rising.
Well, I can't really say because I don't really pay no attention to it, to tell you the truth. I have, you know, in charter, and I have to go no matter what, so it's just nothing, I don't even worry about it. I gotta go
I figure
regardless.
you keep a log and
Well, I do some, but when you run a boat alone like I do, and you got 4 to 6 guests, and you're setting all the rods, and you're running around there, that log is out the window. It's all up here, baby. You know? I ain't got time for that. I'm a man of action here and not writing. You know, I'm no difficulty with that.
well, I was
You
just
know,
wondering, because you mentioned about the storm coming through and all of a
Right.
sudden the
Well,
bite
that
side.
could be. You
Well,
know,
then your
that's
pressure's headed down.
Yeah, all I know is when the lightning starts firing in the sky, and when you go to reach for a graphite pole and the fire jumps out an inch, the fish are biting like hell. I can tell you that for sure. But after that goes by, you know, I don't know what the pressure does, but after a storm front usually roars through, then it dies right off. It really sucks afterwards for a while. You know, so and it could be any time of day when that storm front, because you don't know when it's going to roll over you. You know, whatever weather does, none of us control that. But I don't know about just going on barometric pressure and all that. That's, you know, I'm going to leave that to the scientists. You know, I'm just a fisherman. I don't know what to tell you on that. You know, I've seen a lot of it written, you know, and all that stuff, you know, and I try to apply it to what I do, but still, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you on that. I wish I could give you an ironclad, yeah, when the barometer's falling at 907, my millibars be out there, but I don't know.
Well, what about east wind?
East wind, well, it says winds out of the east, fishing's the least, but what I've found too is you catch a lot bigger grade of fish on east winds. Your fishing might not be quite as good, but on Lake Erie, I tell you what, that's some of our best fishing, man. I don't know about east. What I believe in wind directions on a large body of water, it will pile warm water, whichever the wind direction is. It will pile warm water up and create break lines. You know, let's say you got a north wind compared to a south wind, or east wind, you know, west wind, or whatever it does. The lake's a fluid thing.
I'm just wondering, because I got a pond that's stocked with fish. When I get an east wind and I go fishing,
Can't hardly catch them, huh?
and they won't feed when I throw feed.
When you don't feed. See, that's really a perfect thing. My old ice fishing partner, Joe, we had a 120-gallon tank in his house. And he was always feeding them waxworm spikes and all that stuff. And when them fish in the tank started feeding like hell, we jumped the boat and go fishing. And it worked good, because we had some little walleyes, a couple little northerns. You know, we had the thing stocked with lake, you know, right out of the lake, you know, bluegills, you know, stuff we're going to be fishing for. We had them in that tank, and that was very informative in how the fish react. He had a little trout in there too. And that goes to shows me the power of must be scent, because we would throw a kernel of sweet corn in that thing, and he would get it every time before it got to the bottom of that tank. I mean, you couldn't. We'd hold a kernel of corn, and there was weeds in this tank, and you stood there in the corner, and that trout would get all the way to the other end of that tank, and you ease it in behind the weeds where he didn't see it. All of a sudden, here he'd come. He'd get that kernel of corn. That trout would, of course, hit the bottom every time. We tried standing there, you know, all right, we're going to get him this time, you know, and sneak over there and let it slip down the side, and he's down at the other end of the tank, and all of a sudden, he'd get it. And I know he didn't see it, so how else did he know it was in there? How did he sense it? You know, so trout, I believe, have pretty good things that smell and taste. You know, compared to bluegills and crappies, I haven't never been able to put scent on where I figured that made a difference to me. You know, was we fishing with a bait that you put something on, and all of a sudden that made it productive? Or, you know, I've never seen that instance yet. I don't know. Have you ever seen anything where you felt that it really made a difference?
I had a case down for a river where.
Well, I'm just looking for what you give confidence in.
Where everybody's fishing live bait, and I'm fishing minnows too, but I had a little hair jig on, and they would hit it, but I put a little bit of scent on that hair jig, and the light just happened like that, everything in the water. On that day, scent really mattered, made the light quicker, and the fish got a little bigger on that day. It doesn't make a difference every day,
Right.
but on those days when it does, it's good to have it with you.
Well, I got an open mind to all that stuff, because I've seen instances, you know, where it possibly did make a difference, the scenting and everything, but I've just never seen it prove to me, to beyond a shadow of a doubt, that it's worth, you know, dipping your bait with stuff every time. You know, I I'm looking for that magic potion. I tell you what, if we could bottle some of that, we'd
And
be.
bloodworm scent right behind John's thing is right there. Awesome.
Well, let me tell you, in Europe,
That's gold.
bloodworms, baby.
Everything eats it in ice fishing.
Everything over there eats bloodworms. Period. Yeah, they chum with them. They call them jockers too. They're little bitty. You throw them in, they all take off like a cloud, swimming like crazy. The fish go nuts.
Is that something they have that?
Yeah, they're bloodworms and jockers, or they're bloodworms that they use for bait. That's what they live. They live in colonies in the bottom over there. But another thing about
Is
Europe,
it natural to their environment?
Right.
yes, it's very natural. That's what they live
Well, they're
on.
natural here,
Not here.
too.
We do have them here too.
Good one. I've never seen anybody harvest them or raise them.
I
They
thought
don't,
it was.
they don't harvest them, but they do live in a lot of lakes.
I've seen them, but they're
especially-
this little bitty.
Yep, exactly.
They're so little you can't. Over there, they got them on steroids or something because the darn things look like our redworms. I mean, they're.
Totally different subspecies.
When we were in
Same
the
bait.
Ukraine fishing, I was digging around on the ice picking up the Ukrainian when he spilled to use for bait because they were so superior to what we had. They give us the cast off junk, and of course I'm over there going, holy crap, them look like night crawlers compared to what I got. You know, you're trying to, with these hands, trying to bait a little bitty.
Well, that's where that's
Shit.
barely kind of.
Yeah.
Up with that.
It's a bitch, but them bloodworms, and over there too, they got another habit that we would never dream. They call us open hook fishermen. They give the Americans the credit for that, because over there they wouldn't ice fish down a hole if you don't throw something in. I have never in my life seen them fish without having a piece of bread in it, a piece of grain. I'm telling you guys, something they're pouring out of a bottle. I don't know, but there ain't nobody fishes over there without something thrown in the hole. 100% across the board, they're chumming like we do for our deer hunt, you know. Ground baiting, they all take these concoctions. You should see them when we go and compete. They all hate the Russians, so the Russians are like cavity search for this stuff, and they're like pulling out, well, I got something here, and well, I got another. They'll have a rolled up newspaper with like bloodworms. I mean, they got like 2-liter bottles full of this stuff. They got limits, and they're pushing the limit. Then they'll have like 2 liters of bait. Now, how could we use 2 solid, Coke bottles full of worms on one little 3-hour fishing trip? I mean, they throw bread. There'll always be a bread right where it's little crumbs going down, and it's totally alien to the way we fish. We go drill holes, throw our lures in, and catch fish. They just think, oh, they're nuts. How do they do that?
Feeding the fish well.
Yeah, that chumming thing over there, I had a hard time getting used to that, when you see what the hole looks like when they get done with it, man, looks like a cow from the barn been in there or something, It is. But it's effective, because a lot of them fish that they're catching are roaches, which are shiners, and they react good to that stuff, and you get them coming up, and then they catch a crap out of them. But and each place is kind of different, and what they think's important and what we think's important, and when we go over, I go over there and look at, how they go about fishing and we go about fishing. You can just see it's like, man, they got these little bitty fishing poles they fish with.
Palm rounds.
Yeah, they're running around fishing with this, and we're going, what the heck you got to catch with that? Well, we thought this would be a detriment when they come over here, but it's the furthest thing from it. They flat can get the job done with a little fishing pole and using their hands, where we always do it with a hook and, a fishing pole and stuff. They do it with their hand, and they get a bigger fish, they give and take, If they got like a 20-pounder on, it'll be just like us, they could bust off. We do a lot better with our spinning outfits and our other rigs, but it's quite an eye-opener when you go and compete against them and pick up some of the, what they think's important and what we think's important, and you go, well, maybe that color isn't as important as I thought it was, because they seem to be whipping the tar out of me with them old lead-colored jigs there, and none of us would even buy one off the shelf that was just, well, it's just lead color, it ain't even painted, they must be junk, but, the attitudes are different, and it still boils down to, catching the most fish,
Are they fishing with jigs without bait?
Nope, they're putting bloodworms on.
Even when they come here?
Oh, nope, they use wax worms and spikes when they come here because they have to use as being used here. They can't bring bloodworms here, not live ones. None I've ever seen been allowed here. The guys I know tried to import them on the sly. They run them through the radiation on them and kill them all. So, you know, there's an act about bringing live stuff from other countries into our country, and it's a good thing too. That's why we've got all these invasive species like we have zebra mussels. Zebra mussels affected the, and gobies. They've affected us all tremendously here on our fisheries here. You guys have seen the results of that. The zebra mussels did what man couldn't. They cleared up the lake dramatically. Lake Erie, man, when I first started chartering down there, it was nothing. You'd never seen clear water. Now you can see down 15 feet at times. You get a big nor'easter and it'll still rile the lake up, but it's cleared the lake up tremendously. You know, now they're saying too clean. You ever thought we'd hear in our lifetime that it's too clean? Yeah, one extreme to the next, man, huh? But, you know, they don't ruin a fishery, but they sure change it. That's what I've seen. Oh, certainly.
What's your cadence and how do you fish when you search it? Do you go right to the bottom or?
No, I always start up, always, because fish can see a lot further away up in the water column. Bait that's down by the bottom, I always like to start, say just 12 foot of water. I'll pull out 4 or 5 foot and I'll just start jigging my way down and watch till I get fish to react. I never go to the bottom and fish up. Never. I always start above and go down.
Are you always moving it?
Yes, I'm always jigging. You know, I'll chase it down pretty rapidly. And if I get a fish to react, now if I get a fish, you know, I'm going down and I got my graph and I see a fish coming, I immediately stop going down and I start going back up. Because that fish is coming now. Now you want to take it away from him. You want to trigger that feeding instinct. A bait that keeps coming to him, a lot of times they'll rush up there, look at it, and fall by, and they'll just watch it go by. You start taking it. What you want to do is the bait's going down, the fish starts reacting to it. You want to think, you want to act like a minnow that's just seen Jaws coming. You know, holy crap, he's coming to get me. You start, and you start taking it away from him, and that will trigger a feeding reflex on these fish far more than ever given it to them. Take it away from them. It's a trick, you know, I did. It served me well, and sometimes more aggressive than you think too. You know, I mean, I've done that. You drop right down to them and then just rip it. Especially crappies or perch that are minnow triggered, you know, by them fast movements. Bluegills and sunfish more bug eaters, you know, so you got to be a little more relaxed with them. Crappies and perch. Look at the type of spoons you're fishing like right here. You know, it's pretty standard fare for out here. You know, an aggressive. If they can see that, and it draws them farther away too, because that movement, you know, a big flash bait, whether it be a Swedish pimple, chicken Rapala, something with some flash to it to draw them from a ways away. But I'm usually pretty darn aggressive with that. And then if I get fish to come in and don't bite it, then I can slow down and change. But when I'm in my initial search, I'm just looking for a fish quickly to react and tell me, no, there's something there.
What about without electronics?
Well, then you're just gonna have to go on the bite, you know. Not everybody's got electronics, and let me tell you, you don't have to have it. You know, especially in a shallow environment, you just go fishing. Sometimes, you know, even the shallow, you can't see out very far anyway. You know, I mean, you're better off just to go fish. You know, you'll end up probably catching more by just doing that. But
Do you hold it in the depth range when you don't know exactly where they are?
yeah, usually they're going to be bottom and they'll come up to feed. Bluegills and crappies will come halfway up in the water column with a big feed or 3 feet or whatever, you know. Perch will come on up too, but they don't usually come up near as high as a bluegill or a crappie. You know, a couple foot. You take care of that young man now.
Yeah. He's the only one that caught one today.
Well, he did better than me. I have a caught one today. I can just tell him stories about doing it.
I got another question.
Certainly.
A lot of times, if it's clear water, sometimes I take minnows and use a dead stick, you know, just sitting there with my shanty, jigging, and I see these big tankers come up sometimes, these 10, 11-inch perch, and they're just whacking at the minnow, and it's just not getting it. Like they're playing with it. are practicing getting it. Have you ever seen that?
Yes, I have, and just a chap ship.
What is that?
I don't know if I knew I'd be rich too. Yeah, that's why they allow spearing over here. Did you know? They got a solution to that.
Yeah, beat them steel.
They quit slashing at it when you pull them up on the end of that stick.
I don't like
That's
this. I don't
their
like this.
idea.
I don't either.
Yeah.
I like to give them a chance, but I've seen that many times. You
Yeah.
say they blind or they just
I
practice?
I think fish are a lot like athletes sometimes. Some people are just better athletes and are better at catching food than other ones. Some of them just miss. And some of them will miss it and then just get discouraged and go on. You know, you're going, what in the heck? You'd think they would just, they taste it or something, you think they turn right around and get it. Some of them will.
Yeah.
The biggest crappie I caught yesterday. Come in, grabbed, I had a big waxworm on a little jig, and it pulls out of him, and over he goes. Of course, he tears the waxworm off. I'm all bummed, just the biggest one I've seen all day. So I get it up, and I'm rebaiting, and I'm looking, and here's the waxworm sinking. You know, I'm down watching him, and he's down there, and he's looking at that waxworm sinking. So I get it baited up, and I drop down past that waxworm. He come right in and gulp, and I got him. It was the exact same fish, too. When I just rolled and got off, and had time to bait and get that same individual.
High pressure system, I've seen you get a lot more fish that'll strike and miss things.
Yeah, like a practice.
It's like going on an airplane the first few hours, so when you're up there, you kind of feel kind of off a little bit, you know?
Like I've
They
seen-
don't always catch it, you know, it's just like I've seen,
Like I say with the minnows, they're just there. You see them hitting it and
Well,
everything. They got
well,
it,
there's
smell it or something.
footage we got from cameras running on the boat salmon fishing where you have the camera following your bait. You only get out of 1 out of 10 that comes in after your bait, 1 out of 10, if you're lucky. Because they'll come in and they'll miss, and they'll go away, they'll miss, and want to follow it for a tremendous ways and then peel off. Then all of a sudden, the one you get just all of a sudden appears on camera and gulps the bait and he's gone. He just comes in and one lunge and gets it. Invariably, that's the ones you catch. The ones that are coming are nipping at it, missing it, nipping at it, or following it, or striking at it, missing repetitively. I don't know. But like 1 out of 10, when you're trolling, actually you're getting that you're hooking that are really actually after your baits a lot of times. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know why they're missing it. You'd like to think, could you slow it down to help them, higher hook percentages? And that's one thing by the horizontal jig rage too. You'd like to take that away from them, so when the fish come in, they bite it behind you, hook them in the upper part of the mouth. If you drop the bait to them, a lot of times they'll bite it head first, and the hook will be pointed out, and all you do is jerk it out of their mouth. So that's another offshoot of always taking it away from the fish, is it brings your hook around to a good hooking position, so when the fish does bite it, as you're taking it away from him, because now it streams out like a kite tail, and he'll come up from behind and grab it, and every time you hook him in the upper part of the mouth, very high hooking percentage location where you land them, it's on a hard part of the mouth. Plus you drove it up. Well, if he bites it backwards, he bites the head first and you jerk it out, then odds are you're not going to get that one. They either spook him, or you don't get it the next time he comes around, or there's another one, or there's a million stories. You want everyone that comes and reacts cooked in the bucket, which you're striving for, which it never happens that way 100%. But it's a nice thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other good questions you got there? Because I enjoy telling you guys stuff like that.
When's the last time you fished out here?
It's been a couple years. But I'm thinking I'm going to come back this week here. I've seen everybody else. It's looking good. A buddy of mine's wanting to go, so it's heading drive. So I figured I'd come out here. And, yeah, that's what I heard, too. Should tighten it up real nice.
Yeah, we'll do that.
But it's beautiful. That's why the lake's so active. But this nice fishing, high, sunny conditions. It's always been a favorite of mine. At home, that's my favorite time to fish on our Clearwater lakes is Devil's Round or Wampers. It's 10 to 2 in the middle of the day is the best time, really. You wouldn't think that, because everybody thinks early and late. Now, some of your basin lakes, it's more early and late than a clear body of water like this. I don't know, it's just you gotta go. Put your time in, and knowledge is the key to success. Keep putting, keep going. And there's no magic potion. You got to go find the fish, and then just be effective at catching them. And I'm pretty darn simple. A lot of the other guys carry things extreme. Seems to be a lot of trouble for them.
You gotta love it.
You know, yeah, but everybody's got their own ideas, and you know, and little John here, he's the gadget guy anyway. I'm always laughing at him. He's coming up with working traps and stuff. He's all the time, you know, messing with stuff. For me, I'm more of a just go catch the fish type, you know. But I love them types because they bring me a lot of good things to use, you know. And I was using that on the bucket. He come and asked me, hey, I'd like to manufacture them. Knock yourself out, because a friend of mine, when I was a kid, was the first one I seen do it. What an effective tool to run around with this bucket now, you know. You got a bucket with your graph on it, you can put all your stuff in it. That evolved because he liked to fish a little lake out behind the house. He'd take his hand auger, put his Vexlar on the bucket, put him a little bucket inside to put his 25 bluegills in, and he'd put a hand auger over his shoulder, so when he walked to the lake, he had his hand auger, his bucket, his graph was in there, a couple of fishing poles. You know, if you're not tournament fishing, you know, you got time to retie if you break one off. You know, you take just like 2 poles with you. You know what you're getting into typically. He'd go back there and every night get his 25 bluegills and auger back over the shoulder and walk back out a half a mile. You know, it's one of them lakes that's not nearly as accessible. Something like you got here, if you can't take machines out, you got to walk out. You know, and these big fish houses are real nice till you get a foot of snow and you got to go up there a mile and you got to walk or something. And then all of a sudden they're not so nice. You know. So, everything within its realm, you know. But there's a lot of nice stuff out there anymore to use between cameras and flashers, and GPSs. And man, you find that good spot now, and that old GPS is like, you know, you're right back to it. You know?
What's your outerwear that you wear? Or you got any?
Yeah, I usually wear. I wear some clam clothing. I've got so many different suits I've worn so much, but I wear Cabela's. They got some guide wear I wear. I wore Arctic armor. I wore it all. They've got some floating suits now. Myself, I wear just a pair of white boots. Keeping my feet warm to me is the most important thing. I'm an ice fisherman. I wore all the pack boots. I wore, done all that, and I've just finally done any method. I just wear a pair of white Mickey Mouse boots, and then I can fish without gloves because my feet are warm. If your feet get cold, your hands get cold. You know, to keep it, you know. All the outerwear to me isn't as important as good long johns. You know, the good long johns have made far more difference for me to keep it warm, even in that cold weather. I would just wear 2 pairs of long johns is what I'd do, with a layer of fleece over that. You know, layer up. Good pair of wool socks. And all this outer gear, you know, whether it be Clam or Fraybill or, you know, I'm not, you know, pushing any one brand here. I don't really care, but I do believe the really good long johns are far superior. And I usually do 2 pair myself. You know, I wear a lighter set underneath and a polar layer for the next layer, then like a hoodie with a fleece and a fleece bottoms and a good pair of wool socks and you know, and some good outer gear to stop the wind from getting on you, know, with a hood on it and everything, you know.
That's the key, the wind.
Yeah, the wind, you gotta battle that off and keep it warm. And you can't have any fun ice fishing if you're freezing.
Exactly.
I think you're right. You keep your feet warm.
You keep your feet warm, and to me, that is by far the most important factor. Them white boots are, you know, I've been wearing them since I've been, you know, the old Mickey Mouse boots. I've been wearing them. I've had all the pack boots and stuff, but invariably you got to take them off every night, dry them up. You sweat, they get moisture to them. You got to put them on boot dryers, but they do keep your feet warm. You know, some people swear by them too. You know, it's whatever you know. If you baby them, they're fine, but also you get a lot of sweat issues with them. But I'm not here to pass judgment on any certain kind of thing. Make your own self warm, you know. And if you're taking people fishing, you know, like the woman and the kids, the grandkids, you know, as I'm guiding all the time, you know, I found it's very important to keep them comfortable, you know what I mean? So they have a good time, you know, because first and foremost, we gotta have a good time out here fishing. That's what we're doing it for, to enjoy ourselves, you know. I don't make a good living if my guests go away unhappy, you know. If they come, I want them to leave with a smile on their face. They're like family members to me, that people that pay me to fish, and I treat them good. And you know, we're talking about how their kids are doing in school and how they did hunting season. We're talking about everything but fishing typically on the fishing trip, you know. Hey, how's the wife doing? And you know, I miss your buddies that was here last year, you know, and that kind of thing. And that's the way fishing should be, the camaraderie and having a good time out there. Very important, you know. Keeping warm is very important when you're taking people. It's the #1 killer of ice fishing, is being comfortable. And that's one thing, all these fish houses and shacks, like with the grandkids, we'll usually go do my pop-up one just like he's got there. We'll set that up. maybe we try and get a good hole, you know, good spot where they're catching some fish, get the heater going, and then we can run out and fish the area and use that as the command center type of thing, you know, you get somebody in there fishing. And if you get a super good hole, you move that to the best, you know, the best spot you got, and you get all the kids and everybody in on it. That's kind of how we utilize the bigger fish houses. Because we're group fishing, you know, probably just like what you guys are doing all the time. A few people out there having, you know, chasing them around. That's kind of how we do it. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Fishing any more world championships?
Yes, I'm going to Belarus this year. Yeah, this is, I think, the 5th time I've made the teams. I've made it every time I've tried. But I'll probably pull up short one of these times because it's getting harder and harder with all these young bucks because we have to fish off for like 3 days. We do like 5 heats in the best 10 from them, from everybody. Then anybody here can go and try out for the World Championships. But you have to fish off against everybody, and then we do another 5 tournament thing to get down to the last 5 guys. You get 10, and then we go at the end here, which we just did, to get down to the last 5. You know, and it's not an easy thing. You have to prove yourself every time. There's no electronics in world competition. It's all hand drilling and just fishing. You can take as many ice fishing poles as you want, but you're allowed to fish with 1. No electronics, and you're hand drilling. And they assign you where you're going to fish too. You don't get to go anywhere on the lake if you want to go. They go and they draw out a grid like a little football field. You're all fishing in there. It might be a desert, but that's where you're fishing. You know. Of course, they've always found me a good dead spot. No, but I've done pretty good in world competition before.
Do they do that by random draw?
Random draw, right. The way they do is it's a 2-day competition in the world, and however many teams there are, say there's 15, there'll be 5 Americans or 5 Ukrainian, 5 from each country, and they'll draw 1 American, 1 Russian, 1 Ukrainian for Zone A, same thing for B, it's all random draw. You don't even know where you're going to fish until just before we go out. They do the draw. You got like a half hour, all right, Myron, and you're in A, and you know you're in B, Billy, and you know that's how they do that. It's all random, so you don't know what you're getting. So it's a real chess game in world competition. You're allowed 2 flags, as they call it. You're allowed to protect a spot, and you're allowed to fish a spot. So you got 2 spots you can save with these 2 sticks. My strategy always going in is you go in immediately, have the wind to your back so you can watch everybody, drill your hole, start fishing. First person that catches a fish, you snatch that shit up and you run as fast as you can. I'm a big fat guy, but I can cover a lot of ice in a hurry when I can. Because you have to in world competition. It's running. If you ever want to watch some neat stuff, just push in, get on Google and do ice fishing world championships. And there'll be footage of us competing. And you'll watch how these guys run. They're like track stars, man. That one Ukrainian, that sucker can run 100 yards in 7 seconds with a full gear on, I swear. I mean, I mean, shit, yeah. It's pretty neat to watch them operate because they run, you know, and if you get in the zone and they're catching them just over into one corner, you better be over there quickly because they'll take their extra flag and then, because they can't fish within 16.5 feet of you. If it's 16 feet 4 3/4 inches, you're getting a red card, buddy. You're gonna get a flag on your ass if you're 1/4 inch too close. And they measure. You know, they're measuring all the time. Before you drill a hole, a lot of times you have them checked so you're not too close, so you don't get a disqualification, because that costs the whole team then. You know, penalty type things, like a football team. You know, the guy jumps offside, you know, said you're wanting to whack him. You're about to cost us the game here. You know, so you got to be careful with the rules and regulations. And trust you me, them Europeans, they scream foul they're worse than Americans. Hey, Steve, what? They're all screaming and hollering, and it's always in a language we don't understand. Yeah. It's always in some Japanese or Russian, or they're all talking their smack. So
Those are all timed events too, aren't they?
yes, 3 hours, 3 hours. You know, I mean, it's like the gun goes off, boom, you start drilling. And I can drill a hole in 30 inches ice in 7 seconds with a handle. They time it again. Well, that's a 4.5 inch off. You know, fin bore off.
One of the lasers?
No, it's a fin bore. It's a Mora Pro 3. You know, the lasers, they'll cut pretty good, but it's a little bit slower than that. The older Strike Masters are real good.
synthetics got that head on.
Got that, yeah. They're real good too. The only thing I got against the synthetics, they break them. You get them stuck in slushy ice. You start going like this, you break them.
That's a metal shaft.
I know, but the bolt, the screws will pull out of the plastic on the synthetics, that's the only thing. If you, they're really great, and most times that don't happen, but if you get real slush deep, you know, deep cutting, where it gets stuck in, you get it stuck, you know, sometimes you get an auger stuck in there. You start doing that, no. I like steel. I'm a machinist, I like steel. But, them really work good on the drills, though, them synthetics, so they're pretty darn hard to beat, just on, you know, the Walter Milwaukee drill, you know, that's the rage, I tell you, that's. Everywhere you go now, you've seen how that's applying, you know, and then lithium batteries are just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable, how quick they are, they charge, you know, and,
Yeah.
They
I
cut
still
a-
have my adapter though.
they cut a nice hole in a hurry, you know, quiet, you don't have to mess with it. You know, you can pull up on most normal fishing trips, and how big a hole do we really need out here? You know, six, you know, I mean, unless you're gonna get a muskie, 6-inch hole is always adequate out there. What do you guys think? I mean, I'm a 5-inch, you know,
I use
but
a
a
5-inch
6-inch
laser.
hole on a bigger fish, if he gets up in the hole, you're gonna get him, because even if he gets off, you can still pin him.
Well, tell them guys to start making them 4-inch mortars and stuff like they used to have.
I got it. They
Tell
sell-
them to start.
They sell all that stuff overseas yet, though.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, you know, you can check, if you get on the internet, you can see a lot of it in Canada being produced, and they make the smaller stuff. But here, you know, most of our, you know, it's just, the demand is 5-6-inch chucks. You know, maybe 8-inch, and a lot of people that do the walleye or the pike fish, they like the larger hole. And, you know, once you get over 6-inch, the drills ain't really adequate for it. They don't handle that. That's, man, you know, you gotta have power. 2 horse to run that.
Yeah,
know.
I found that out with an 8-inch.
But 5-inch on the drill, man, pretty awesome.
Yep.
Or 6
It worked great. My laser,
Yes, sir.
5-inch laser.
The problem I have with, I bought a drill, and I got the old blue. The problem I have is getting it started, just wants to walk around. How do you guys?
The blue ones are bad for that, actually, to
blades
tell
are
you the truth.
new,
That's
but
why,
it's
like,
just
the
walk.
Strike Master, you know, they've got more of a point.
Right.
You know, then
these are
it'll
more-
walk in and
these are
start a
more
lot.
flat, them ones, and they just
don't wanna
no,
try
get
that.
them started once it gets going, but you gotta try and fight with it to get it started.
I don't really know the answer. That's inherent, because if you look at how flat the blades are.
Right, you almost have to strike a hole first to get it, you know, get it going.
They make a center punch for that.
If you got it on a cordless drill, half pull it when you start with a little more, and just to get it started, and once it starts to bite, it picks up the RPM, and it works just fine. If you try to go full blast, go walking. You just gotta get it started slowly. And as she starts to bite, let it have it.
They don't make a center punch right.
No, I just like something with a little taper to it. The old blue ones, you know, them are the cheapest blades. They work real good. I run one of them blue ones on a Tanaka power head. What I run, you know, a 5-inch, and that's one of the cutlass machines because it's fast RPMs. Cuts real good. They got the nils, but I don't like them as well, only because when you strip the hole out, it leaves too much slush in the hole. I gotta dip it too much, and I hate dipping the hole. I don't even hardly ever use a dipper. I usually use my hand to flick it off, or, you know, just a dipper. I always kind of lost or something. You know, it just seems like if you keep a hole drilling and then strip it out, it blows the chips out, so when you're done, you barely have any on the hole, you know. Whereas the nils, if you pull it up, the hole will be half full of slush still. You gotta go through the process of dipping it out. In real speed fishing, it's a waste of time for me to get a dipper out. If I gotta get the dipper out, I did something wrong. I should be able to strip the hole and have it clean enough to get a bait down. But unless you're sight fishing, and then you gotta clean it good and see it. But if I'm just draft fishing or just fishing, I don't ever take the time to dip the hole. I just drill it, strip it out good enough to get the line down. Then if I really start catching them and it starts turning into something, then we'll clean it out and go to that extreme, you know. But until that hole's proven it's gonna produce something, it's not gonna get cleaned up. So it starts producing, okay, well, we'll do something a little more for it. But other than, you know, I could be long gone, not catch nothing out there, why go to all that trouble? Because I'm still just trying to catch fish, you know, and so I'm trying to eliminate everything that's wasted except for what's producing me the fish. You know, just keep it simple, cover a lot of ground. Sometimes you still going to get it, you know. I mean, I've been through that, but then sometimes, you know, man, good things happen too. I know this just like the Holy Grail, just over there a little ways, I drill a hole, and we're gonna be there. Man, I just gotta drill another couple holes. Yeah. another couple holes and get 'em. And in the first World Championships, I fished an hour and a half into a 3-hour heat, and I haven't had a bite yet, and I'm on home turf. You talk about puck. Then I come back and won my zone and got first place in the last hour and a half. So a lot of production can be done in a hurry when good things happen.
What changed it for you?
What changed it was I found a log. That's what changed it. I found the log, as I started fishing down this log, it was in Boom Lake, and John can attest this, it was, they'd logged it over the years. Many years ago, a lot of this log was laid out. Onto this log, now I'm fishing with my little schoolies, which have a peg in them, so you can tell depth with my schoolies, the little plastic reels. That's what I was using at the time. And I dropped down, and I drilled another hole, and I catch a fish. I drill the hole over a little bit, and all of a sudden, it's this much shallower. I drill the hole another 1.5 foot over, and lo and behold, it's this much deeper. So then I started catching fish laying right along this log. Well, I started working down the log. Well, them guys know how to play chess too. Because I had about 15 holes drilled down this log, and I was catching fish periodically, and I'm, well, all of a sudden the Polacks hollered, and one of them comes running over and puts his flag on one of my holes. Now I can't go back through none of them.
No.
But he did me a big favor, because instead of going down through the used part, I kept drilling down the log. Kept right on catching them. He thought he was screwing me by blocking me out, but actually what he did was me a favor, because I was going to go back through them holes because I was lazy. But true, there's a fisherman. No, this is
They
inherent
proved
in all
though.
of us.
That's why you'd go back, right?
Right,
You would
because
think.
Plus, it's
Yep.
a time
Instead of
saver.
coming off.
It's a time saver, but I'm telling you, it's a backfire, because you're going through used water, and you've already pruned them off. You're better going into where you haven't been. Absolutely. Now, if you're catching them, and that's good and fine, you can go back. It's a time saver, but how much time does it take when I can drill a hole in 7 seconds? You know what I mean? It's not saving me that much time. And not only that, but I'm going into a new spot where there's new fish, much easier to catch, especially fish that aren't moving around. I'm better going into, I've proven it myself time and again, when I'm done with the whole tournament fishing, I don't go back. You're done with it, you're done. Go on to new fish, go find new fish, new fish, new fish. And you'll have bigger catches and catch more. Then it's easy to go back through your old used holes, and I've done experiments both ways. And going back, is it more cost effective to go back where you've already drilled, but you've pruned off all the big ones. First ones to bite the big fish, almost invariably. Best fish you catch out of the hole will be the first 2 you catch. Maybe not the first one, but it'll be the second one.
Is that
right?
a rule of thumb you go by? Pretty much?
Yeah.
First couple of fish. is
Couple
they
fish and
prove.
roll. Now, it depends on the environment, but that's pretty much. Now here, where you got flocks of them coming.
Say like perch, you're gonna.
Right now, that's a
I'll go
different
back to a
story.
hole, like on a pressure
Oh,
vessel.
no, that's a different thing. Now are migrant fish. Now, I'm talking about
Bluegills.
bluegills and crappies, okay? That's what I'm talking about going through your used spots. Now, they can reload, say you get you a pocket in the weeds, and so you get your little sweet spot, and you kind of prune them off. You go fishing for a little while, boy, now you keep that one hole, boy, I caught 10 over there. I'm gonna run back and check that, and see if it reloads. Now that, firm believer in too. But perch fishing is just like he says there. Sometimes you get on that edge or on a runway,
Right.
you're ineffective with your time by drilling more holes, and you're better off to sit there and let them, as long as they're coming, come to you. If the fish aren't moving, you gotta go to them.
Because that's what we'll do, we'll go fish and we'll spread out like in a triangle, and then when somebody starts catching fish, we'll kind of move more towards them, and then when it dies off, we'll spread back out again, and then, because it's just usually a school moving.
On St. Luke's, when we fished over there a bunch of the perch, which was right across the lake, there was 2 types of days. There was the days you could go over there, get out where the fish were, drill you a couple holes, sit there, and as soon as you dropped in, you'd catch 3 or 4, and you wait a little bit, some more would come, you wait a little bit, more would come. It's just every 10, 15 minutes. What's the cycle like here? It's usually gonna be a little 10, 15 minutes, a flock come by, Then there's the type of day where you drop in them holes, you catch your 2 or 3, and you don't catch no more. And then you just keep drilling, you might drill 10 holes, and then all of a sudden one of them you'll catch 2 or 3. So what we got to doing over there was we maybe, there'd be a whole bunch of us when we go in a group, we'd drill 400 or 500 holes or whatever, we'd have 3, 4 augers going, and we would throw the fish, leave them by the hole where we caught them. So then when we went back through, we would only fish the holes where we caught fish before, like 2 hours ago or an hour ago. And a lot of times them will reload, whether it be because of moss and the zebra mussel clumps being right there where they kind of hang out, or a weed patch, or for whatever reason, you'd have 10 holes and only catch them into one hole. When you come back, it'd be that same hole again. There'd be days where we'd have to cover a bunch of holes, but we'd only get 1 or 2 out of a good hole, and then you wouldn't get no more. It's sitting there and suck. They just ain't coming. But when the fish are up like a nice sunny day and they're moving, the best strategy was to sit there and let them come to, because they're coming good enough. But if they're not coming good enough, you gotta go to them. You know, and they'll be in an area, you know, like I said, they'll see 15 feet or something. Every fish you can see your bait will come and eat it immediately. And then that's it. That's the only ones you're gonna catch there, because they're just laying around. So you go and drill it off, and you, like I said, there might be 10 holes, and all of a sudden you drop in there 3 quick big ones, you know, wham, wham, wham. Fast you get it up and down. Yeah, nothing. Nothing. So, how long do you sit there? You know, I'm one of them. I'm always in a hurry, you know, so all right, oh, God, that we're good. We'll 10 holes, we'll just go 200 and we'll have our limit, man. You know, and that's kind of my strategy for tournament fishing, you know. I mean, golly, I only need 1 good hole every now and then. I don't need 100 good holes, just a couple. You know, and the harder it is for them to find them good holes, the better luck to win, too. You know, and make it a little more difficult, so. Cover the water effectively. One of the analogies I like to use is look at a guy in a boat. The guy in a boat will come up, throw his anchor out, he'll cast as far as he can in all directions and fish. I fish this area out. Same guy, come back fishing on the ice. He'll drill 1 6-inch hole, I fish this area out. Same guy, right? I mean, look at, you know, you're holding yourself to a hole this big instead of putting them on around, you know, just kind of keep it perspective, you know, just one little 6-inch hole only covers, you know, like as far as the fish can see, right there.
You want a boat fishing out there, just wouldn't stay in that one spot.
Oh, geez, no, you're
right.
You know, I mean, hey, you know, but, yeah, right. That's the way it is. So, drill lots of holes. You know, get you some capability, whether it be with an auger, whether you know, hand auger, whether it be with a power auger, and look around and don't get married to one hole. You know, if you get a good one though, production is what we're looking for.
Scout them areas in the boat too, and then mark them and go back in the winter.
Absolutely. You know, you're always looking for that cherry spot. But, yeah, that's just some of my words of wisdom. You know, it's not the smartest thing, you know, out there, but I like simple and something you can repeat and do. You know, just reading in magazines and you know all this fairy tale stuff. I don't know, that ain't gonna get her done. You know. My girl don't believe in fairy tales anyway.
Yeah. Tell both though.
Anybody else got any questions?
I was wondering about walleye fishing at night out here.
At night, I don't do a whole lot of night fishing. My girl would love me to do that because I already charge her from before daylight till after dark. So midnight trips are out. I'm not really experienced at the night fishing. I wouldn't know what to recommend you. If I had experience, I'd tell you, but that's not my forte.
What about the day fishing for walleyes? You deal with that?
I'm more Lake Erie. I can guide you down there, and I can take and put you on them. I can do all that stuff.
On the ice?
No, in the boat. I guide down there. I started in 1st of May, and I guide till mid-July on Lake Erie, and then I go salmon fishing until last week of September, and then I go deer hunting.
Yeah, I catch tons of walleye out of the boat that night. Get some out of the lake through the ice. So doing that.
Well, these Great Lakes are a fantastic fishery. We don't know how blessed we are to have fisheries of this caliber. You know, right out our back doors here, utilize. It's world class. When I go overseas and stuff and see what they got to fish and what they've got over there, we don't know how lucky we got it. You know, we live in a mecca, and we don't appreciate it. After I've traveled extensively all over, we're really blessed. I tell you what, I thought that Chicago was the worst armpit I'd ever seen when I left there. When I got back from overseas, I was kissing the ground, saying, "Boy, it's a pretty nice town." True story. True story. And there's pretty poor countries out there, and people are actually subsistence fishing. You know, where this is all sport. Us have a good time. If we don't catch someone, we go out there. It's not a great big deal because we're gonna eat good anyway. Over there, if they don't catch them, they don't eat. They're going hungry.
They go fishing out every day out there.
Right, and they're riding bicycles. I mean, in Ukraine, there was no four-wheelers, there was nothing. They either had an axe or an old piece of spud, and they rode bicycles to the lake. You know, and I mean, they had these fat tired bicycles you see, and everybody drove down the hills, drove down the lake, and fished on them reservoirs to eat. And it wasn't too far from Chernobyl when I figured out when I got over there. Oh, we're in the Ukraine, that's where Chernobyl was. Oh, really? Well, we're going that way. So,
Well, you talking about those glow bait,
Yeah.
glow fish.
the fish are glowing, them big eyes over there.
What do you catch when you go over there? What are you guys fishing for?
Anything that'll bite, actually, but it was perch, which is the exact perch we got, except they ran a little smaller. I saw one about 11 inches, was the biggest one I saw over there. But they got the thing called roaches, which are shiner minnows, which is just like, but they'll get up to that big, up to about a pound and a half or so. They'll get pretty big. Fight like crazy. They're super fast, like catching a trout type of thing.
So you guys going by weight?
Yep, total weight in 3 hours. Total weight. You know that's why they'll fish for little fish, big fish. It's a total weight. As many fish as you can catch in 3
Oh,
hours.
as many. You don't have a limit and gotta throw.
There ain't no limit. There ain't no licenses over there. They're subsistence fishing. They're catching fish to eat.
No, I didn't know if you had a weight limit. You had like bring 5 big ones in, or.
No, not over there. Not in world competition. No, in the States and stuff, it's like that. We have a number.
Right.
You know, we got 8 bluegills and 8 crappies, or 8 perch and 8 bluegills, or whatever the tournament format is. But in world competitions, as many fish as you can catch in 3 hours. And it's total weight. So that's how the format runs.
What's the big one over there?
Well, the brim will get to 3 kilos, which would be 6, 7, 8 pounds, but I've never seen one of them brought into competition. It was all road. They try and set these zones up so that the home country has advantage. You know, that's what home court advantage means. You know, so they try and set the parameters up so it's conducive to them winning. You know, it's just the same thing we did, except we didn't get the job the last time. So, but that's another story. We got 4. After winning the gold medal in 2010, my biggest disappointment in life was not winning in 2012. It was awful. Home court advantage, we were favored, we didn't get it done. And that was a case of, we'd been catching the crappies like crazy. We had 2 20 below mornings in a row. That bluebird con, colder than hell, crispy con. Quarter pound is a big catch, and they beat us catching perch that long.
Now, if you're
It was
doing that,
sickening. We tried to stick with crappies because that was our whole format. If I caught one crappie, if I catch one, it weighs more than all them little perch they caught them together. I only had to catch one fish to win. What?
Right.
now,
Had we catch 2 more crappies, we're gold medalists.
when you're doing that here, do you have to follow the same rules in the U.S. as you would overseas?
The U.S. tour is totally different rules as the international competition.
Well, I mean the international.
Yes, if we fish here, it's the same rules when we go over
Right.
there.
Okay.
Here we had to use. They made us fish on the All Plain Reservoir, and the reason is they wanted to have fish available that there was no limits on, which were carp and shank. So they're wanting me to ice fish for carp for the world. Nice. Now I'd never caught one in my life through the ice, but I cannot say that anymore because I've caught a few of them now, and they can be caught through the ice. But they're tricky little shits. Real tricky, as a matter of fact. They fight like crazy, mind you. Well, number one, we set the zones where they weren't available, just like what they did to us in the Ukraine. Everybody went over there, thought they were fishing for brim, which are a bigger fish, and they set the zones up on 2 shallow flats when they didn't live. The zone stopped in like 18 foot of water, and you couldn't catch a brim unless it was 25 foot deep. So don't tell me they didn't do it on purpose.
Yes.
Once we understood the fishery and fished for something, caught some, I seen what was going on right away. Well, they made this a perch for But they're chumming. This was their strategy to win. The Ukrainians employed to win the championship in 2011. They always chum over there. And the strategy they employed is to run out, drill a hole, throw a bunch of chum in it, run over there about 40 yards, drill another hole, throw some chum in it, run over here, drill a hole, throw some chum in it, do about 4 of them. So they made up a little milk run, 4 or 5 of these spots. And then they would run back to their first hole and fish, catch 2 fish, 2 perch.
Chumming for the shiners love that.
Well, the perch do too, but this is their strategy. This was the winning strategy. They would catch 2 perch only in a hole. Then they would jerk up, and they'd run as fast as they could over to their next hole. Drop in, boom, boom, 2 perch, as fast as you get up and down. Now you're wondering why they don't sit there and keep catching them, because The chum isn't really your attractant when you're chumming. What's attracting them is all the fish feeding. And so if you wipe out all the perch that are there, you lose your attractiveness to draw the rest. So what you want to do is you catch like a couple, have 20, say 20, 30, 40 feeding. So you catch two of them, they don't miss them, they just keep feeding on all that stuff. You run over there and catch two, and you just can do that for the whole tournament, catch two. And then about half hour, 40 minutes before the tournament's over, you run to your hole and you sit there and catch every one you can. Until you drop in and you go 20 seconds without catching one, then it's going to be anywhere from 10 to 20 of them. As soon as you wipe them out, you run to the next hole. You do the same thing and you try and time that so you just finish up the tournament. Because your attractiveness to the fish, and it's like when you throw food in a fish tank, you know, all the rest of them get excited. But if you catch them all that chum's falling, you don't have, what's drawing them is the other fish feeding, they feeling that vibration. The food isn't sending vibration. What's sending the feeding vibrations is the other fish kicking and thrashing and running through and doing that. And that's it wasn't until after the tournament was over till we really understood, once we seen what took place and how their strategy, and then it all, well, that was easy. Yeah, why didn't we think of that?
Yeah.
But that's the strategy they employ, you know, that chumming, you know, but you don't want to wipe them off your chum. You want to have a bunch of fish feeding and you can just keep taking them and it keeps drawing and it works like a charm. But their strategies are different than what we employ, you know, so chumming we're still learning a little bit, but I haven't forgotten that lesson. That will be remembered. Well, anyway, you've been a great crowd. I really appreciate it. If you want to take a look at any of the equipment I got up here, any one-on-one talk or bullshit, you're more than welcome, guys. So, thank you. I really appreciate you spending your time.
Thank you.